this my part of this case is over, but what's not over is the situation with my children. I haven't seen my children now for almost 250 days. They were taken in May last year without my permission, without my consent, and it's my opinion that they continue to be suffering from parental alienation. There is a law against abduction and kidnapping in Japan. I want this law to be applied by the Japanese police, item 224 of the Japanese Penal Code. In addition, Japan has specific international treaties and obligations to ensure that parents and children are not removed from each other, and I want Japan and the Japanese government to uphold those legislations and those treaties that they've signed, because 100,000 children are being taken without the consent and denied access to a parent in Japan. Most of those cases are not involving foreign parents such as myself. Most of those cases are those involving Japanese parents who don't have a voice. And what we want to say is that what future is there for Japan if children are being taken and removed from their parents without their consent? The family court routinely refuses to investigate these forced removals. The police, in my case, I went to the police dozens of times and asked for their support in investigating this issue, which is covered by Japanese law and international obligations, and they did nothing to support me or my children. So all we want as parents, and I stand here as one of a representative of a huge collective of parents from France, from Germany, from Italy, from America, from Canada, from South America, from Asian nations, but most importantly, I stand here representing the Japanese mothers and fathers who've had their children removed from them, and all we want is a system of joint custody in Japan, that Japan joins the rest of the civilized and modern world in implementing a system of joint custody, because this is an issue that has been affecting Japanese parents and foreign parents, male, women. This issue does not discriminate on gender or race. It's one that affects everybody equally, and we stand here on behalf of our children who don't have a voice, and we want the Japanese government to bring a system of joint custody so that children are no longer removed from a parent.
6 months suspended, is that what you expected?
For me, I can't talk about what I expected or not, and for me the issue is not about the sentence that I received. What I want to know is when are we going to stop the sentence of the children who are being taken from parents in Japan? Because there's been cases where parents haven't seen their children haven't seen their parents for decades. There was one famous case with a woman who's been fighting this issue for more than a decade, and she passed away last year without having the ability to see her children. So we don't want this to happen to any more children. Of course, the parents are suffering, but the people that are suffering in this case the most is the children.
Scott, given your sentence, what happens now with your search for your own kids?
Well, I can only go to the family court, but together with the brave Japanese politicians led by Kushida-san and Kata-san, what we have to do is we have to change the law, because there are international obligations and human rights conventions and treaties relating to the rights of children, and those rights stipulate that they have a right to be with two parents. So why does Japan insist, alone amongst G20 nations, that children should be forcibly separated internally? I mean, this is a case for me that has been only 9 months. So I'm in one way fortunate, because there have been so many other Japanese parents, so many other foreign parents that have been without their children for years and years and years, and decades and decades and decades. And this is not a way to conduct a modern society. Children have a right to two parents. It's simple. It's not a particularly difficult situation. We're not calling for revolution and change. We're calling for the rights of children to have access to both parents.
When you came in Japan, the French President Macron talked about this problem because there is a lot of French cases.
Yeah.
Do you expect the Australian government to intervene also?
Not just Mr. Macron, but Mr. Conte from Italy and other politicians have done this publicly and privately. And as an Australian, of course, I would love the support, because this is an impact in our case in Australia that impacts male, it impacts women, it impacts young people, old people, and there are, in our estimation, more than 100 children who have been taken either to Japan or within Japan and denied access to a parent because of Japan's brutal system of single custody, which is not in line with any form of modern statehood. people around the world recognize and understand that children have the right to two parents, and that's all we're asking for. And we're very pleased with the work of France, very pleased with the work of Italy, and of course we want Australia and other governments, but the only way it's going to change is through the work of the Japanese government. So we call also on the Japanese government to recognize that what they're doing is jeopardizing their own future by having these children forcibly removed from parents.
What do you think about the non-criminalization of the first abduction in Japan? In every modern country it's criminalized, but in Japan it's absolutely legal.
No, it's not legal. There is a law against kidnapping of minors in Japan. Article 224 of the Japanese Penal Code specifically prohibits the kidnapping of minors. The problem, as I see it, is that the police refuse to investigate this. In my case, when I went to the police, they said, no, it's a family matter. We have no investigation. But I went with the law and I said, well, here's the law. You cannot kidnap minors. And they said, no, we make no decision. In this case, this is just a case for the family court. It's not a case for the family court because you have Japanese law in place. You have international law and international treaties in place that Japan has ratified and have an obligation to support. So all we are asking is for an implementation of laws that are already in existence.
Yet we never followed it since, what, 30, 40 years?
So this is what we want. What we want is law is in place, investigate. When somebody comes to the police making a claim of an abduction or a kidnapping, do a proper investigation as per the Japanese law. The law already exists. So why do the police routinely refuse to investigate this law?
Now the travesty of justice is very simple. The law is there. They never applied it, but when I went and tried to see my own daughter, they applied the very same law which you say they didn't apply.
Yeah, which is completely unjust. If you have a law, I was told the same thing. If I go and attempt to retrieve my children, then I will be charged with kidnapping and abduction. So how you can say it's okay to prosecute one person in one situation, the secondary situation, if you attempt to take your children back, but it's not okay when the law is already in the first place. It doesn't make any sense.
Yet in the law, it doesn't say specifically first or second abduction, doesn't it?
That's right. Kidnapping is against Japanese law, and it's against international law, and all we want is for these laws to be respected.